Ralph, do you have still any question?
Yeah, the last one is the one we usually ask for is what's your expectation from today's session? So if you have an expectation for today, so share it with us, please. Okay, the stream is live on YouTube now. I'm missing the first sections, but I have it recorded so I can.
That's fine. At least we have
It's just introduction.
Yeah.
And to those who never had the chance to join us on Azure Dev Meetup Munich, may I introduce Thomas to you? Thomas is is one of the organizers of and founders of Azure Dev Meetup Munich, like I am. So my name is Ralph. We both warmly welcome everybody joining us on this cool event again. And I don't know, haven't seen the name list yet, but I guess there are a few who are
repeat offenders.
Yes. Very cool. Thanks for joining us once again. Please don't miss to subscribe to our Twitter, to our YouTube, or whatever you want to stay tuned with us and also with the meetup page. So just go to meetup.azuredev.org or youtube.azuredev.org or twitter.azuredev.org. On all that, you may find us and hit the follow button. That helps us to stay in touch with you and being on the cutting edge as we'd love to be like so. And that's the way we've met Sarah for sure. So the first contact was made through Twitter. And Sarah felt somehow bored and was asking for, hey guys, isn't there anybody out there making me as a speaker on your event? So here we are. Sarah, what's up?
Yes, thank you for answering that tweet that I sent out back in June, Ralph. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we are happy that you are joining us for this session here. And there are the guys from 7Pace, which Thomas already mentioned. 7Pace is a software company editing software extensions for Azure DevOps, and they'll heat through the 10 nice extensions for Azure DevOps, and for sure you can expect from today's session swag, as we've asked you, and some cool giveaways we're hiding for now. So you have to stay to the end to get the chance to get one of that cool items. Am I right, Betsy?
You're right. I added all those links to the Twitter accounts that Ralph just mentioned, so you guys can go and just click on them to follow. Sarah, I hope it's okay. I also added yours in there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fine. So, what would you call your job role is the final question of today's survey. So we would be glad if you could answer that one also, so that we have it done for today.
I added all those links to the Twitter accounts.
Pardon it. Okay.
So you guys can go and just click on them to follow. Sarah, I hope it's okay. I also
I actually closed the mentee site already.
Fine. So
it seems like we were kind of done.
Yeah, I was sorry. I've missed the introduction of us, so I've added that. Answer that one also.
That's fine.
Done for today. Thanks. Pardon it. Okay.
Guess I'm not the only one though.
YouTube is working now.
Okay, cool. Seems like we were kind of done. All right, we got some devs, consultant, infrastructure ops engineer. Wow, okay. Team lead, no SQL. That's cool. Guess I'm not the only one though. All right. So this was the last one, right? Okay, cool.
Let me check. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. No. The company size, we can skip that one. Heading back to meetup swag. If there are some of you having now a better idea, just put it in right now. We'll leave that for another minute so that Sarah can prep her talk for today. And Sarah, we'd love to hand it over now to you, if you're ready.
Yeah. Let me share my screen.
Oh yeah, for sure. Heading back to Meetup Swag. If there are some of you having now a better idea, just put it in right now.
Awesome. So thank you for having me today. As the guy said, my name is Sarah Lean and I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft. And I'll get on to what actually a cloud advocate is later on in the session. But first of all, I want to start at the beginning of my career. So I came out of university with my computing science degree and went straight into a traditional first level help desk role. And that I was very much that person that was answering the phone. So I was resetting people's passwords. I was logging their faults for, broken printers, printer jams, all that good stuff. And I have even had that traditional call where someone said their monitor wasn't powering on, and after a few questions I realised that what they were actually trying to tell me was their building had had a power cut and they were trying to log that fault. So I've had all of those types of questions, and that's really where I started off of my career. Now, as much as I was learning about the technologies that we were fixing as well, I was also learning a lot about customer service skills, and I think that's really put me on a good steading for the future of my career. Because back when I went into this first level role, and it was about 14 or 15 years ago, we didn't have a lot of the technology that we have today. So a lot of these phone calls were literally phone calls. I wasn't seeing people's screens. I wasn't seeing them with video call or anything like that. So I was having to understand the problem from just the words they were using, the descriptions they were using, and also trying to figure out how they were reacting to this via their tone of their voice. And I think a lot of people forget nowadays that IT isn't just about technology. It can often be about that customer service experience. And even when you become, a high-flying consultant that's designing systems for large organizations, customer service is still at the forefront of that service that you're providing for your customer as well. So I'm a big fan of saying that you really should do a rotation, or you should really start your IT career at that first level help desk. You get a good variety of technology, you get a good variety of people, so you get to really touch everybody within your organization as well. So I've spoken on the phone to the owner of a company that I've worked with, right down to the person that runs the canteen because their PC and their canteen isn't working. So you get that full spectrum of people, and you get to realise how technology really affects their job, so that if you progress in your career, you can take all of that on board when you are designing those systems as well. I also served on several second level help desk roles, so that was seeing me move away from just answering that phone and trying to triage that, and using the second level roles. That's when I started to actually go to people's desks to physically start to interact with a lot of the customers. And again, half the battle with some of your IT problems is often that customer service experience, about being able to sympathise with them when something goes wrong, and then being able to fix their problem as well. Now, I won't lie, there was a fair share of me telling people to restart their PC, but I think that's just the nature of the beast. I had some problems with my PC today, and rather than troubleshooting it, I just restarted it, and guess what? It fixed it. So that's still very much a staple of what we do in IT as well. Now, what these first level and second level roles really gave me was a variety of technology. Now, my career has been steeped in Microsoft technologies, so I think I've probably touched, and I often joke about this, I've touched every Microsoft product that there is there. I'm not an expert in a lot of them, but I do have good knowledge of some of them. And when I was starting off in my career, we were using technologies like Windows 7, Server 2003, Server 2008, and although we don't use those technologies, or we really shouldn't because they're out of support nowadays, the fundamental practice of those operating systems is still in focus now. It's not Windows 7 that I use Windows 10, but it's very much similar, that similar interface, the similar experience, and again, I've been able to move along with the technology. Same happens with Windows Server. Again, different operating system, different version that we're using, but again, the key principles of how to run these still applies. Now, things like Exchange Server maybe isn't what we use nowadays. I don't know a lot of people that actually run on-prem Exchange servers, but fundamentally when you look at Microsoft 365, the email part of that was built on the foundation of Exchange Server. So those skill sets can be transferred that you've learned on-prem up into the cloud. The fundamentals that everybody needs an email address and everybody wants the biggest email account they can because they want to keep every email and every attachment still kind of applies whether you're managing it on Exchange Server or whether you're managing it in Office 365 or Microsoft 365. And the last icon here on the screen is actually Active Directory. And again, that's still a fundamental of how we all connect, how we all authenticate into our accounts. Yes, we might be leveraging Azure Active Directory now for a lot of things that we use, but again, some of the fundamental principles, right? Often you still need a username, you still need a password, you might need two-factor authentication, so you might need your password and your phone to get into your PC, but again, everybody needs that kind of authentication method to get into that. And again, we're seeing a lot of customers use a hybrid technology. So they still have their Active Directory on-prem and they're just extending that up into the cloud to run some services. So they're running Active Directory inside virtual machines within Azure. And Active Directory doesn't care where that virtual machine is running. It will still do that authentication. It will still do the same operating that it does on-prem. So again, a lot of these key skills that I've got have been able to transfer and I've been able to upgrade them as such when I move through my career. And they're just extending that up into the cloud. Now, after spending some time on the help desk and the second level, I started to move into more senior roles. We started to look at the third level and the consultancy role where I was designing systems and trying to troubleshoot more troublesome problems within the IT department. And again, I feel that a lot of the stuff that I learned during those support roles actually helped me, again, being able to understand how people leverage their emails, what they want from an email system, how they want their printers to work, how they want their file shares to be laid out, the naming conventions of things, things that worked and things that didn't work. I was able to build into some of the newer designs that I was implementing for those consultancy roles and for our customers as well. And like I said, customer service skills are very much at the forefront of that. Ultimately, when I was often a consultant, I was in that pre-sales technical role. And again, if I wasn't pleasant, people wouldn't have been buying the solutions that I was designing. So again, those customer service skills that I'd learned right at the start of my career still followed me through. And I think they still follow me through today as well. Now, a lot of my career, or the majority of my career, was inside data centres. These aren't pictures of the data centres that I was in, but they reflect some of the ones that I was in. So I have spent lots of lonely weekends inside data centres trying to figure out cabling messes like that and trying to get it into some sort of order so that we know what the cables are actually doing. I've spent time troubleshooting those KVMs and using them to interact with servers. And again, I've had those memorable moments and it was a lot of good fun spending time in there and figuring out how all these servers connected and interconnected with them. But that's very much something that I miss. I miss being able to go and touch the servers that I'm administrating. I miss being able to do that racking and stacking. I definitely don't miss, though, fighting with those horrible little server cage nuts that would often ping off or they would cut you and you would be bleeding all over the data center. That is definitely not an experience that I miss. But I do miss the data center element of it. And actually, the last couple of months, I built myself a new PC for home use and I got my little bit of hardware on home. So I still have ways of playing with hardware as well, even though I don't get to go into data centers anymore. So yeah, I was that hardware geek, and like I said, I still do a bit of hardware at home now to just keep my hand in and understand what's happening in the market as well. However, things were starting to change. I was starting to see that it wasn't so much going to be on-prem, and it wasn't going to be hardware focused. With the future, cloud was starting to become very much a thing. More people were adopting Microsoft 365 for their emails, for their file shares. We were also starting to see the introduction of Azure, and we were starting to see AWS as well become a player in the cloud market. And I was starting to get worried about how my career was going to pan out. I wasn't sure if the skill set that I'd built up over all these years was going to be relevant, or where my future lay, to be honest. And I decided, rightly or wrongly, and I think rightly was the right decision, to actually move and get a new role. And I joined a company that were basically about 4 or 5 people, and they were cloud first. All the solutions that they delivered was on the cloud. So that was Microsoft 365 projects, or it was Azure projects. And that was a bit of a scary challenge for me, but it was one that I really enjoyed doing. And I want to talk about some of the projects that I actually got to do there. Now, one of the major projects that we were actually working on was Microsoft 365 adoptions. So we had lots of customers who were moving away from their on-prem environments and hosting their email in the cloud. And as I'm sure you're aware, Office 365 or Microsoft 365 is a bit more than just email. There's a lot more that goes on to that, especially nowadays. And we were driving those adoptions. So again, I was able to leverage all that Exchange experience and all that on-prem experience of managing Exchange servers, because part of a Microsoft 365 migration is actually taking everybody's mailboxes up into the cloud. So I was still getting to tinker a bit with Exchange. I was still having to use all of that. And that's why I was really employed by that company, if I'll be honest. Their engineer was cloud first. He'd never touched any servers on-prem. He'd never spent any time in a data center, but he knew Microsoft 365 and a lot of the Azure services quite well. So we bounced off each other in essence. You know, I was able to play on my on-prem skills, all of that experience of using of some of these technologies, some of these older technologies, and then he was able to help migrate them on as well. So we were quite a good pair in terms of that. We skilled each other. Now, the next project that we had was an IoT project. So we had a customer who had to measure the temperature within fridges, and the solution that they currently had wasn't very good. So it wasn't IoT. The server kept having to be rebooted because it was a bit troublesome, and every time the users wanted to see the data from the fridge temperatures, they actually had to log a call with the help desk, and then the help desk sent them on to them. So what they wanted was a solution that didn't need as much maintenance, and the users could access whenever they needed without having to get IT involved. And that's where my boss started to look at an IoT project. And I'll probably be honest, when he told us about this, I don't even think I knew what IoT was at the time, if I'll be honest. But we banded together and we got a solution working for the customer. And basically it was collecting data from IoT sensors, pushing it up into an IoT hub, some stream analytics, using Cosmos DB to store the data, and then Power BI was pulling that data into a report. Now, the project was delivered. It was a bit of a scary time because I was starting to have to learn some technologies that I'd never heard of before, never leveraged before. And I'll be honest, a few years ago, there wasn't as much documentation or even hobbyists playing with IoT projects and some of the Azure technologies that there is today. So it was definitely a learning experience. I think if we were to do the project now, it would probably be a wee bit better, if I'll be honest. And that's partly because I know a bit more about some of these technologies, and also because the technologies themselves have actually moved on quite a bit. But what this project taught me was that I could still skill up. The skills that I had might not be relevant anymore when we're talking about things like Cosmos DB and IoT stream analytics and stuff like that. But I was able to learn. I was able to learn on the job. I was able to ask the right questions, find the right people to help me, and figure out how to put this solution together. So I was still able to work in the IT industry, and that gave me a lot of confidence for moving forward and made me realise that this cloud thing that everybody was talking about wasn't actually as scary as everybody was making out. So yeah, it was a good project in the end, but I don't think I'll be rushing to do anything like it again in the future. Now, the next project that we actually had was something a bit more familiar to me. So we had a customer who had several offices spread around the globe. So they had their main office here in Scotland. And then they had offices in Dubai and in Asia. And what was happening was their backup solution was coming to the end of contract and they were looking to invest in something new. Now, one of the issues that they had was that it was backing up to tapes, and in the Glasgow office that was absolutely fine because the IT department were based there, so they could change the tapes. They had a company that came and picked up the tapes and stored them in a secure location and then brought another tape back for them. In the other locations, they were relying on members of staff just within that office, and often people were forgetting to change the tapes were getting broken, tapes were getting lost, tapes were getting forgotten, and they didn't have basically a reliable backup solution in these remote offices. So this is where we started to implement Azure Backup. Now, I'd never used Azure Backup before, but I'd used lots of different backup technologies and designed a lot of backup technologies for other customers. So I was able to take a lot of those skill sets and move them. Even though I was using a different interface, a different bit of software, I was able to take that skill and transfer it into the cloud ultimately. Because let's face it, backup is backup. We always have to back up things once every day, once every week, once every month, keep those long-term backups for 7 years or whatever our audit requirements are. So a lot of that is just transferable, and it reminded me very much that the skills that I had learned were transferable into the cloud, unlike the IoT project that we saw. And the same with site recovery. So that's a tool within Azure that helps you build that disaster recovery. So instead of leveraging, say, a second data center that you own, you can use Azure as your secondary data center for disaster recovery. And we were able to implement that for them as well. We only are able to implement it actually within their Glasgow office because we had good internet connectivity from the Glasgow office, and we actually had a data center in the UK. We couldn't get disaster recovery set up in Dubai or the Asia office, unfortunately, just purely because of the poor internet connection that both of these offices had and the lack of a data center that was close enough to them. We now have data centers in these locations. I think even, I'm not sure if the Dubai one is open yet, but obviously that is an option. So potentially it could be a project that they're now readdressing and adding in as well. So as technology moves, you can start to do some of these projects again. But what I took away from this project was that my on-prem skills were very much relevant in the cloud. I was just using a different interface to actually carry out those skills. And also within this role, as I've said a few times, I was a mentor and a mentee at the same time. So I was teaching my colleague on-prem knowledge and showing him how to use some of the servers that we had to interact with for our customers. And he was showing me a bit of the cloud. So I think that's key to remember that each of us have something we can teach each other within our department, whether that be an infrastructure person talking to a developer and a developer, teaching the infrastructure person something now, because those jobs are not as defined as they were on-prem. They're becoming a bit of an overlap now that we're in the cloud with things like infrastructure as code. So we can each learn from each other, and I think that's key to remembering, regardless of what your job role is, regardless of what seniority you have, we can all be a mentor and we can all be a mentee. Ultimately, all this led to me actually forming the Glasgow Azure user group. I was starting to, use Azure a bit more. I was struggling with documentation. A few years ago, there wasn't level documentation. There wasn't the level of hobbyists and people sharing their experiences. And the nearest user group to me was actually in London, and a road trip every time from Glasgow to London for a user group meeting was definitely not something that I wanted to do. So I formed the Glasgow Azure user group, and it's been a great experience for me. I've learned a lot from the speakers that we've invited, and I've learned a lot from the people in the audience as well, and expanded my network locally as well. And I'm probably singing to the choir here, but if you haven't been to a user group, I really do think they are very valuable. I've got a small list of user groups that I know of around the world on that link on screen as well. So if you're looking for other user groups, please do reach out to them. I know a lot of them are running them virtually now, so you can attend much more and not just your local one locally as well. So as an infrastructure person, I am or was very comfortable with GUI interfaces, so I like the point and click of everything. However, when I started to use the cloud, I was starting to realise that I was going to have to learn some coding. I was going to have to up my skill set in some of these areas because unfortunately not everything is available within the Azure portal, and you can surface a lot more and you can be a bit more flexible if you actually deploy things by code. Now, I touched PowerShell back in my Exchange days when Microsoft took away some of the functionality in Exchange 2007 in the GUI, and we had to use PowerShell. So I used it. I had some scripts around PowerShell and I knew my way around it, but I hadn't ever used it for Azure, so I had to skill up in that. Now, I picked using PowerShell as my coding language because of my experience with it with Exchange. My colleague at the time, he was more of a Linux person, so he actually preferred the Bash, so he preferred Azure CLI. What we often would do was actually sit together and I would code in PowerShell the deployment of the resources, even if it was just a simple virtual machine, and he would use Azure CLI, and we'd see how far we would get through the deployment before we hit a feature or a function that wasn't available, or we would then swap the codes if we weren't able to do it and give each other the kind of written code and learn from there. So that's how I ended up learning Bash from his scripting and being able to relate it back to what I was doing with PowerShell. I've also taught myself ARM templates. Love or hate ARM template deployments within Azure. It is something that I'm aware of and can actually use. What I would say, if you are like me, an infrastructure person that prefers a GUI, try and learn one of these. You don't have to learn them all. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to be aware of what they can do, what they can't do, and be able to utilize them there. Now, there's obviously a ton of other things that you could use to deploy code with your resources within Azure. Things like Terraform, Ansible, Chef are just some of them. But definitely explore, find the one that you're most comfortable with, find the one that you enjoy, and use that for your language going forward. Be aware of what they can do, what they can't do. Now, as I was starting to get more involved in Azure, I was starting to hear people talk about Azure DevOps, or VSTS as it used to be called, and I was starting to think I might have to actually learn this. Now, I had always said that VSTS or DevOps was a developer tool and I didn't need to use it, didn't need to learn it, wasn't anything that was going to be in my remit or in my toolbox. But as I said, people were starting to talk more about it, and as infrastructure as code was starting to become something, I realised that I actually had to learn it. And the only way I thought that I could learn it, or the best way for me to learn it, was to actually use it for a real world scenario. So I actually use Azure DevOps to store the code for my blog and actually deploy it into an Azure web app. So my blog is written in Markdown. It's all stored in a repo within DevOps. It then triggers and it picks it up, and a pipeline builds all that code and then deploys it into my Azure web app. And one of the extensions that I use in Azure DevOps is a smoke test, just to check that the website has came up and isn't displaying a 404 error, and I can go ahead with that. So that's the way I've learned Azure DevOps. I am definitely not an expert in it. I have colleagues that are experts that I always call in when there's a conversation around DevOps, but I'm aware of it. I know its limitations, I understand the terminology, and again, it's something that I can say I know and have some conversations with customers to a certain degree as well. 404 error, and I can go ahead. Now, two other tools that I thought were very much developer and tools that I didn't have to learn are GitHub and Git, and they both serve different purposes, but they kind of go hand in hand, and I had to start learning them when I started to do Docker and I started to do containers and started to look at YAML and all that kind of good stuff. I probably use Git and GitHub probably every day nowadays. I use Git as well to push my code from my local machine up into my Azure DevOps repo and manage it. I can do some things like create new branches, I can push code, I can merge code. I'm not an expert. I often have to open up my search engine and look for the command that I need, or look up the help. But it's something that I know how to use. I know its purpose, and I can have conversations with it. GitHub has actually surprised me, if I'll be honest. I use that quite extensively for a variety of reasons. So it is a code repository for me. So there's a bunch of random scripts that I have written that I keep there, so that I don't have to go and look for that USB pen or find the OneDrive folder that I've put them in. I know all my scripts or on GitHub, and I can obviously point them to colleagues or someone like yourself if you're asking about a certain script, because it's all publicly shareable, and it's a great way of having that peer review and getting people to commit into it as well. It's not just my code that I store in GitHub. I have a website, have a small website in there that uses GitHub Pages, which is a free service. So again, if you're like me and you have tons of domains, tons of web projects, I actually use one of them for GitHub Pages, so that URL that I've bought isn't sitting dormant, it's actually got something on it. And there's also the new feature within GitHub, which is GitHub Actions, which is similar to Azure DevOps, and it'll be able to take your code and then run it and create whatever object you want. Now, I've used GitHub Actions to take a PowerShell script and actually deploy an Azure virtual machine through GitHub Actions. So there's different use cases for it. There's tons of functionality, tons of features, and yeah, it's definitely not a developer tool anymore. It's definitely a tool that I use on a daily basis. But I'm still learning. I haven't learned everything. I'm not an expert in any of these things that I've talked about. I'm not a coding expert, probably never going to be. I am definitely not a DevOps expert, but it is, again, like I said, it's something that I know about. I know the terminologies, I know the use cases, I know the cases where it isn't appropriate to use these tools, and can have those conversations with customers. I've upskilled myself, and I've used some of my knowledge from on-prem to upskill myself as well. Now, the cloud is scary, but that's really where I led to joining Microsoft. So I joined as a cloud solution architect in January 2018. I did that role for a little while, where I was architecting Azure solutions and helping our customers onboard into Azure for a wee while. And it was several large customers, so it was very daunting and very scary, but I learned a lot. The role I'm now in, though, is a cloud advocate, and that's a really fun role, and it's evolved. If you told me 5 or 6 years ago I would be standing presenting, I'd be writing blogs, I'd be writing documentation for a living, I didn't think you would be telling the truth. I thought that would be a lie. I love being hands-on, I love being technical, I love playing with technology. And yes, I still get to do that nowadays. I don't work in a production environment, which is a good thing, because I don't have that on-call pager going off when things go wrong with a production environment. But I really love teaching people. I really love sharing my knowledge and helping other people grow and sharing my journey as well. And that's very much what a cloud advocate does. Another part of my role is to collect feedback about our products. So the cloud advocate role actually lives within the Azure engineering team at Microsoft. So we have really good links to all the product teams. So if you have good feedback or bad feedback about our products, please do let me know, and I can connect you with the relevant people and help them learn from your feedback as well. So that's been my journey at Microsoft. I'm nearly hitting a year as a cloud advocate, and it's been fun so far. Now, in order to stay up to date, I've put myself through the ordeal of sitting a lot of Azure certifications. I've got my Azure Solutions Architect badge, and I've even got, recently I got the Azure Data Fundamentals and Azure AI Fundamentals as well. So I love learning about the new technologies, and I think trying to set these certifications actually helps you. I've learned a lot about things that I didn't even know existed while studying for some of these exams, and again, these exams are quite broad, so you get a full spectrum of things that you might never touch, that might not be in your comfort zone. AI and data is definitely not in my comfort zone, but I had fun learning the stuff that I needed to in order to pass that exam. And I can now, again, have those conversations with people. And when people mention certain things, I now have a better understanding of some of the technologies and the terminology. So I would definitely advocate that you go and have a look at some of the Azure certifications if you haven't, because they can be quite valuable as well. Now, again, a great place that I keep up to date is user groups. Like I said, I run the Glasgow Azure user group, so I often learn from a lot of the speakers that we have, but I still do attend other user groups, and I learn from them as well. So they're a great place to learn and to network. So again, I really encourage everybody to attend at least one user group a month if they can, to learn from it and get more connections and find out what everybody else is doing. And you might find some cool resources or even get some cool swag from these meetups. Now, Twitter is something that I heavily use actually to keep up to date. These are some of the hashtags that I follow that help me find the relevant news, find the relevant people to keep me up to date. If you've got any other hashtags that you use, please do let me know. I'd always like to add them to my list and browse through them while I'm having a morning coffee. Another platform that I use to learn is actually the Microsoft Learn platform. So it's a free training tool that Microsoft have given, and it's built into different steps. So we have small modules that relate to products. We have small modules that relate to job roles that you may be embarking on. And as you go through each of these Learn modules, you earn points. So I know a lot of customers that kind of gamify the system. So they set their employees a target that they reach. They set out on to get as many points as they can from Microsoft Learn for a month. Whoever's the top of that leaderboard, gets a voucher, gets a restaurant voucher, something that makes them kind of want to win that prize. And a couple of my colleagues have actually done every Microsoft Learn module that's available. So I think they're up at like a level 18 with 1 million points. So you can take the gamification as far as you want, or you can just do it to match your progress. What's also great about Microsoft Learn is if you don't want to pay to use some of the Azure things, but you want to try them out, there's actually sandboxes that spin up an Azure environment partway through the module. So you can actually get some hands-on learning without costing anything. So it's definitely a resource that I use. I actually used it to pass those Azure Data and AI Fundamentals exams. So the learning paths are very much relevant to some of the exam objectives as well. Another great resource that I use is something that a colleague has spun up in his spare time, and that's the Azure Charts or Azure Heatmap website. And what I actually use it for, and there's tons of functionality on this website, but what I use it for is the update, the heat map. So what it does is pull together all the RSS feeds that you get for Azure updates and puts it into this cool little dashboard that highlights the stuff that's happened. Now, I've filtered it on the last 7 days, so I always check this website on a Friday morning, read the news, get up to date with what's happened over the week, and then just keep myself current without having to search through all these websites, find all these emails, subscribe to newsletters, etc. This website is really, really good at doing that. You can quickly see, some of the ones that are in bold colors here, so like cost management or Azure Blueprints, have just had an update. So if I click on that, I'll get taken through to the news story. So again, you can keep it up to date with what your technologies, your specialist subject are, or have a look at whatever the platform has been doing that week as well. So it's definitely a great resource to have a look at and bookmark. What I've learned throughout my journey is what you know now is still very relevant. Please don't be scared if you're on that similar journey that I've been on from an on-prem engineer to a cloud engineer, because a lot of the skills are transferable and you can take them with you. But be open to the new opportunities that come on board. Like I said, that IoT project was probably scary when it first landed on my desk, but it reminded me very much that I can adapt, I can learn new skills, and it really gave me a confidence boost. So please don't be shy of some of these new opportunities that come your way, because you really don't know where they're going to land you. there's so many things in the cloud. There's so many Azure services. It can be quite daunting when you look at it. I know that. But what I've tried to do is find the things that I enjoy, try a little bit of everything, find the ones that really are passionate about, find the ones that you're good at, and stick with it and learn it and become that expert. And I don't think, unfortunately, you're going to learn everything in Azure. I don't know anybody that does know all the Azure services. So again, find the ones you're passionate about, find the ones that really excite you, and go with them. And that's me. I've put together some resources, some more reading material about things that I've talked about on that link on screen. So if you go to that, there'll be a bunch more reading that you can do and learning as well. And my contact details are on screen if you want to reach out and ask me any questions. But hopefully we have some time left. But thank you. That's my career story.
For sure, we have time for frequently questions. So, are there any questions on? Come on, guys, don't be shy. She won't bite. It's a unicorn. A techie unicorn, is it? May I say that? Sarah, are you still there or are you left? It's like she's gone.
No. Might have dropped out for a second, but it was really a very cool session. It was super interesting.
Yes, the way through all that technology is amazing. It reminded me very well to my career. So, hey,
sorry,
I don't know.
Teams kicked me out there.
It's not that I don't.
Done, though, so.
Somehow I've made the same experience today for some reasons. Don't know why. Okay, so very interesting career. It reminds me very much about my career. So I'm in IT technologies since 20 years. I'm getting more older as I'm saying. Since ages 20 years, you know. And yes, I've started with all that stuff you mentioning. So Active Directory, Exchange, Skype for business service, and all the nice stuff on there. Then the virtual computers came up and all that stuff, and getting more complicated, sharing all the resources to each other, and oh well, that was really awesome. And then the overhanding towards the cloud, that was amazing. And you've made it somehow. And I want to mention also, Sarah, you have a very nice YouTube channel where you're sharing, is it on a weekly base? Mm-hmm. It's a weekly base, right?
Yeah, so about a year ago tomorrow, I started a YouTube channel to learn how to speak to the camera, because it's something that I have to do in my job right now, right? And even more so now that we're all virtual. So yeah, I started a weekly update video where I share news about Azure. So I kind of share some of the news and explain why I'm excited about some of the news. And I also talk about some of the stuff that I do as a cloud advocate and just try and engage with people. So yeah, I'm hitting 1 year tomorrow. So there's a fun video with some bloopers and weird faces that I pull in between some of the filming that I've done. So yeah, please do subscribe to that and watch that video tomorrow, and hopefully it'll give you a bit of a chuckle.
Yeah, I'm coming back for that. For sure. Okay. Twitter it, we will share for sure. So thank you very much. I can't see. So there is a text message.
I think Betsy's had a question about whether I missed my first level support days. I do. That was really fun. I had some really great teams that I worked with. You bond really quickly with your colleagues when the stuff breaks and the proverbial is hitting the fan, and we always had great fun and great nights out. And I do miss actually the conversations you would have, because like I said, you would speak to everybody in your organization, so it was often fun getting to see everybody's perspective and how technology actually affected them and then hopefully trying to make it better for them in the future and try and log the fault. So yeah, I do miss my first level help desk days. I definitely don't miss the early shift, which meant I had to get up at 5 in the morning and then go and answer the phone. Actually, there's a funny story about when I was on an early shift. Apologies if I'm stealing your meat up, but this is a funny story. I was first in on the day, so we did the morning checks, make sure everything was up. Discovered everything was down. Everything was very much down that morning. Oh. We'd had a power outage, and everything was off, like the whole building, no lights, no nothing, absolutely dead. The power came back on, so lights came back on, but we couldn't get the servers. The servers didn't power back up automatically, obviously. So we tried to get into the server room to push those buttons and bring those servers back up. But what had happened was the doors were controlled by electronic door system, and somehow it had shorted out during the power cut. We couldn't get through the doors. We tried to actually climb through a cupboard and down through the ceiling. Didn't work because no one was brave enough to actually do that. And the doors were massive. I'm talking like there were 12-foot, 15-foot doors, like, you know, big, massive things. So you were never going to run at them and break them down. And we actually had to get, and it's called a cherry picker. So it's like one of those wee buggies you drive along and then lifts up so as you can get to higher things. We actually had to use it to ram the doors open to get into the data center. So yeah, I definitely don't miss the mornings where I was first in and trying to check everything, although they were fun.
I see. I've made a couple of those. So I've had 12 inches, or was it 20 inches, water in a server room. It's something you never want to see again. Nothing serious happened, so we were early enough to cover everything, but it wasn't funny. And the power outage is another story, and especially when that virtual the VMware came up. Power outages can become very interesting.
Yep, indeed.
Cool story. Well, Sarah, I really enjoy your story, and we're very thankful sharing that with the folks here. You have it on YouTube now as well, so awesome. you may share it then once again.
Cool.
If it's not done already. I have to do some advertisements today. Oh, there's another question. No, it's not. I guessed it's not. Okay, I have to do some advertisement today. The reason for it is that we have sponsors. Also, it's not only 7Pays, so we have other sponsors as well, and you all might have seen the they call it Voices of Azure, where Sarah has been portrayed as I have been portrayed. We were in the same month, I guess. That was fun. So they portrayed people who have experience with Azure and are running communities or sharing a lot of information to the communities. That was very fun. You can read that out on that webpage, and let me share the screen with you so that I can do the job I have to do for the moment. Okay, switching. So here we go. Hit F5. That one's done. So we have to, I hope everybody knows already, the European Cloud Conference, which were postponed to September 1st, I guess, and then it is now in October due to our pandemic stuff all over there. Second wave is coming, it's just guessing. But they're doing trainings and virtual full day tutorial, and they've started a series which will come up in October, and it's going through the levels 300 and 400. If you're a firm with Azure certifications, it is the AZ 300 towards the AZ 400, which you can go through to get your certification about Azure. And here is the time schedule. So once again, what kind of, so the title of content, what specific workshop is running on which date. It's not for free. It is a fee about $240 per tutorial, and you can book it on europeancloudconference.com, written here down. And these are the contents of their workshops there. So feel free to sign up, share. I've done my job so far. I can recommend the most of them or all of these guys here. They're really experts in the field and they know what they're talking about. So you can learn a lot from them. And I guess it's not that much expensive. Okay. If you have questions to that, please come up later with it. Betsy, now it's up on us to go over to 7pace and the top 10 Azure extensions.
Okay, sweet. So I think Roman is also in here, so I'll ask him to put his camera on as well. But I will say hi.
Hey.
So yeah, I'm Betsy, the marketing lead at 7pace. We are a Munich company, but because of this wonderful meetup being online, I get to totally guilt one of our senior devs into doing a presentation for you guys. This is Roman. He is a developer at 7pace. The last one that we did with you guys was how to make an Azure DevOps extension. Maybe Ralph, if you could put the link to the YouTube stream that we had there from that one. But while we were talking about that, about how to make one, we did get some questions about like, what is an Azure DevOps extension and like why should we use them? So that is kind of what inspired us to talk about the top 10 ones, and these are ones that mostly internally we use and that we use on a daily basis. So that is all. I will ramble at you guys. I'm going to let the expert take it. Thank you, Roman, so much for taking your time to do this today. I really appreciate it. The floor is all yours.
Okay. Hi, guys. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I guess Betsy told everything that I could. So let's start right from the top extensions that we use or we are going to use within our team internally. And the first extension is Sonar Cube or Sonar Cloud. This is a leading tool for continuously inspecting the code quality and security of your code bases. It analyzes over 25 popular programming languages. Sonar Cube and Sonar Cloud are similar solutions by Sonar Source company. The first one is on-premise and second one is cloud. We adopted Sonar Cube several years ago in our team because at first we started as on-premise solution, and last year we switched to the cloud. We use it extensively in the team. We configured our processes that all code changes are done in separate branches, and we create pull requests to trunk. Trunk is our main branch. And every pull request is analyzed by Sonar Cube, and if any issues found, it posts comments directly into pull request. You can see it on the screenshot. In the comment, developers can find a short description of found issues and the link to a web page with more detailed information and even best practice description. And there can be found all information that can be useful to fix the issue. Sonar Cube tracks down not only bugs and security vulnerabilities, but also code smells. So it helps to prevent issues and improves overall code quality, makes it easier to understand and to support for developers. Next one is Personas. Personas extension helps the team to keep focused on the product users. According to the agile principles, the product is done for users, and users are individuals. But on some projects, there is no source of real requirements or users, and using personas can help you to turn user roles into real personalities. For example, you're working on an automated system for a pizzeria, and you can create a list of personas who will use the system. Say, Brian likes pizza and often orders delivery using websites, interfaces, or mobile applications, and he's going to use your solution for the same purpose. Tom is pizza maker, he'll get orders and make pizza. Adam works in delivery, Alice is cashier, and so on. So you can create all personas, all user roles who will work with your product. You can see this list of personas on the left screenshot. You can describe their needs and goals, and then you can map work items in your backlog to on any persona. It's pretty easy. Everything you need to do is just to tag personas, and they will appear in personas affected block, like on the right screenshot. Now everyone can see who will participate in this user story or feature, and it prompts team to think about what functionality or special cases they might have to consider, and helps to understand in the story if the story is addressing pain points of that persona or not. Pull request merge conflict extension. Anyone knows that before a Git pull request can be completed, any conflicts with the target branch must be resolved. But sometimes pull requests are created in web interface, and usually if conflicts appear, developers have to go back to the console or development environments and resolve these conflicts in the local clone, which is sometimes is complicated and not really convenient, especially if they need to fix just a couple of lines of code. With this extension, you can resolve these conflicts on the web as part of the pull request merge, which is much faster and easier. There are a lot of conflicting reviews on this tool, but we use it in our team internally, and it works pretty well. Countdown widget. Sometimes we have questions in our team like, okay, today is Wednesday and the end of the sprint on the next Friday, and how many working days are left. And we had to count days, but now this small widget is answering that question. Every team has important dates to remember and need to know how many days are left. It might be related to end of the sprint, release dates, or in our case, it might be, for example, DevOps server release date, and so on and so forth. And you can make these dates visible for your team by adding countdown tiles to your dashboard. You can customize the name of this tile, set the color, set some rules like skip or not skip, not working days. And of course, you can set the moment and time it represents. Next one is not an extension, but we have to mention it because we use it in our team and it helps us a lot. It's Azure Pipelines app for Slack. Once the app has been installed into your Slack workspace, you can connect the app to the pipelines you want to monitor. You can manage subscriptions to build directly within Slack. We configured that failing development builds on pull requests are sending a message to a specific channel where we can see who authored the build, what was the pipeline, and the link directly to the build. You can see it on screenshot. So here is the link. You can click on it and look what was wrong. You can see the name of pipeline and who requested the build. So we can see that it's George, and you can go and contact him, ask what's happened. Replace tokens. This extension allows to create replace tokens task for Azure Pipelines. which will replace specific string tokens with variables from the pipeline. To configure it, you need to specify just 3 things. First one is files to process, then rules allowing the extension to find substrings to replace. It's like tokens, token prefix and suffix, and extension will find substrings between them. And third thing is a list of variables for the replacement. Might be useful for some purposes. Next one is Azure Boards Kanban tools. This is a lifesaver extension for working with multiple teams in Azure Boards when it is necessary to keep the same settings across multiple teams. This extension allows team to either grab settings from another team and apply them to their boards, or to allow a team to copy their settings to another teams. Look at this small video. Okay, let's wait when it starts again. Everything we need to do is to click this small button on the right top part of the board. Then settings pop-up appear, and we can choose here an option to copy Kanban settings to another team. Select a team to copy and choose levels to copy settings and click OK. And that's it. You can tune a board in one team and copy settings to another teams. This is small but really useful extension. Azure DevOps extensions for Apple App Store and Google Play. These handy extensions contain sets of deployment tasks that allow you to automate the release, promotion, and rollout of application updates to Apple App Store and Google Play. Using them, you can create build and release pipelines to automate these processes. We use it for publishing our mobile application for Time Tracker. FlowWiz. This dashboard is for all agile teams using Azure DevOps who want to leverage their data to have better conversations and make more informed decisions. It was built due to years of frustration with velocity and other traditional agile metrics. These are centered on flow, as well as providing focusing techniques that you can use to give customers greater confidence and transparency in your delivery. To be honest, we do not use this in our team yet. We discovered it some time ago and wanted to explore it in our team. It looks interesting and provides a lot of insights into the work. And the last but not least, we had to say about it, 7-page Time Tracker. This is top featured extension on the Azure DevOps Marketplace. It allows you to track or record time directly from Azure DevOps, and we implemented the new version, which will allow this to do the same in GitHub. It helps to measure key stats, to control value and improve project performance. It gives possibility to focus and make data-driven decisions about your work, and helps to manage time, resources, and budgets for multiple projects at once. So with 7-page Time Tracker, you can easily record your time, approve timesheets, create reports, dashboards, and use a lot of other handy features. I guess that's it. You can ask your questions if you have some. Betsy, do you have something to add?
I mean, the only thing that I would add is that, yeah, 7-page is super happy to be a part of this meetup, and we also have some goodies for you guys over the next couple months. Over the next couple meetups, we'll be giving you guys some swag and some sponsorship. Hopefully, also some free months of Time Tracker itself if you guys want to try it out. I mean, as of right now, I put the link in the chat. If you guys are interested in trying out Time Tracker, you can go to this link that I just put in there, and it's 28 days for free. We're going to try to get you guys, probably for the next meetup, we're going to try to get you guys maybe like a half a year for free or something. But we'll see what we can do there.
All right, thank you so much for joining us again. I think I somehow flipped my camera.
Okay, that was a funny picture.
I hope I saw nothing embarrassing.
Thanks a lot, Roman. That was very interesting. Did you have a calendar in your extension top 10?
Sorry,
a calendar.
Do you mean some particular extension or any extension with
there
calendar?
So within our DevOps extension, we do have a couple of extensions we are using, and one of these extensions is the calendar. There's the place where the team, which isn't always from the same page, you know. We have customers in the team, we have ourselves in the team, and maybe third parties in the team, and we show off our vacation inside that calendar, so we can mark several days and putting in the name for showing our availability during that sprint.
Wow, this is awesome. We use Outlook for this purpose, but I think it would be really useful and we should give it a try. Thank you for advice.
And then there is some other tool which gets very handy if you're dealing with estimation. Do you estimate your stories?
Yeah, of course we do. We used to use Point Poker, but recently we started creating our own service for this, and we are testing it internally. I'm not sure that it will be live, but we are using it now.
Oh, cool. So there's another cool extension called Estimate. So just saying, I hadn't had the knowledge about your cool extension coming up sooner. But you can share that then with us for sure, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Very nice. Okay, cool. That was really a quick one, and I guess we're very good in time. Do we have questions? And folks, don't be shy. Just unmute yourself and hit the question by voice onto the chat. Okay, who's the first one will get a shirt. And
yeah, shirt though.
and a swag pack for sure. Okay, can we have the countdown extension, please? Okay, no question. Other questions in the chat. No questions in the chat.
Or you can also share like your favorite extension, or maybe you have some thoughts which extensions are still missing, maybe.
Yeah. Is there anybody out there? I'm not. It feels like Radio Gaga, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's always yeah. It's weird, like these virtual events. I'm really looking forward to getting back to seeing people.
Yeah, so yeah, we will. I have to share a story with you. So you might have noticed that we were setting up on 17th of August another meetup this month, and it was planned to become an in-person meetup on a rooftop. We were very excited to get that running, but it was a week or so later as the digits of this pandemic were getting more and up and up and up, and so we decided for our all safety and for the concern of the economics that we have to suspend that and push it to a later date.
Nevertheless, the meetup will happen. It'll be now a virtual one. We're sorry, we cannot do in-person meetups for now, and we know companies who have suspended in-person meetups for the next 8 months or so. So they'll start with
Microsoft,
it
for example.
in June or in July 1st. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. So it's really tough, and we miss you all. We miss the clicks of our beer glasses and so on. That's really something missed. I see a lot of people going away. That's okay for us. So
any free stuff.
No free stuff, no t-shirts. Okay, that's okay with us. So we're doing some savings. You can have us on September next time here with a cool topic. Check it out. Don't miss to make some noise on Twitter, post a pic. If I get recognized of a pic on Twitter, we can do a raffle about the shirt. We do have some Microsoft shirts, and we do have some, I guess there are 1 or 2 bottles left. So water bottles left. I've seen that request, and for sure stickers. Okay, that's all for now. Do you have any further topics, Thomas?
Not from my side. Just really happy that we got again such great speakers. Good thing the YouTube live stream worked, so even with not that many people. So we really appreciate everyone who has tuned in here live. Do share the YouTube video. We will tweet it out maybe later or tomorrow, and so everyone can enjoy this as well when they get back from
holidays, vacation, like from wherever they are.
Yeah, I mean it is vacation time, so I think we did pretty good regardless, and I'm sure we'll pick up later this year again.
Yeah, since it's recorded, I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy that we have had Sarah here. I don't know if you've recognized that. She's from a former European country. Okay, that wasn't true. So it's a former European member of the European community, and so she lives there, and she's doing a very cool job regarding feeding the community with news and updates. That's really cool, and I really appreciated that story. She's no longer with us. I'm so sad about that. So yeah, and yes, Betsy, I will link the YouTube record of the how to do an Azure DevOps extension, which you've provided us earlier this year. So that'll be available there as well. And yeah, once again, do noise outside in the socials, share us. If you want to become a speaker, don't hesitate. We will aid you as much as we can. So we weren't perfect today. That was because I was very in stress, and I have to postpone the meetups next time to 6:30 or so, that I do have an extra half an hour for setting up.
All good.
Yeah, if there is no comment anymore, nothing, we can conclude our meetup for today. Thomas, last words on you.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks again to everyone who joined, to all the speakers, to 7pace, to you, Ralph, for making the stream again happen. And yeah, see you hopefully soon.
Yeah, I hope so also. Take care.